the majority of our life is lived in liminal space.
And there's this in-between space, this liminal space.
This liminality that reveals possibility.
I think we're in a liminal moment, but also in a place of transformation.
I have great affection for the church and a troubled relationship with it.
Just to be alive in time means that we're on the threshold of the future.
That can't be the gospel, because God said to love our neighbors.
We don't know what the future looks like. We have to work it out together.
Well, February is Black History Month, and I have been exploring some of those stories from their history that I should know more about, but I don't. And one of the things growing up kind of in that fundamentalist tradition is I over-spiritualized everything, and then I didn't know how it applied to actual life. And that is not something that I'm finding when I study this traditional Black church in America, especially in the South and the civil rights movement things. And so I've been looking into that history and sharing some of that with you because I find it very inspiring. One of the stories I found was actually from 1964. Y'all remember Norman Rockwell? Do we have any fans of his paintings? I remember growing up in going to my doctor, which I didn't like that because he gave me a shot every time. I don't remember why. But he always had that one picture of the little kid with his kind of pants down, going to receive a shot from the doctor. Very iconic. Well, Norman Rockwell, he placed this painting in the January issue of Look magazine in 1964. That just stopped the country cold. He was one of the most beloved illustrators in a whole American life because he did the Boy's Life magazine, which was the Boy Scouts of America kind of a thing. He also put out a lot of Saturday Evening Post covers, did a lot of covers for them. He put out 4,000 works spanning about 6 decades of American experience. And we just loved him for it because he took who we are, that whole Americana vibe, and he painted it back to us. And we just loved him for it. But then he released this one in 1964, and it was just different than what we were used to out of him. And it stopped the country cold. And it was actually called The Problem We All Live With. Norman Rockwell, Mr. Americana, painted a picture called The Problem We All Live With. Here it is here. It's this little black girl in a white dress, and she's got her school supplies in one hand, and she's walking forward, and behind her is a racial slur that's kind of smudged with a little bit of a tomato, but also she's flanked on the front and the back with these guys in suits and these armbands on them. And this painting actually captured a moment in our history because the girl in this painting, her name was Ruby Bridges. She was 6 years old, and those men there are U.S. Marshals sent to protect her life. Holy smokes. Mr. Americana paints a picture like this in 1964 and just stops us cold in our tracks. Now, 10 years prior to that moment, the Supreme Court ruled in this Brown versus Board of Education that segregation in public schools wasn't cool. It was unconstitutional. Nobody's allowed to do it anymore. But the Southern school districts said, well, we got states' rights, so you can't tell us what to do. And they just refused to comply with the order. So 3 years later, in 1957, 9 Black students enrolled in an all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. They were called the Little Rock Nine. And the governor, his name was Orville Faubus or something like that. He deployed the National Guard to block them from going to school, to block their entrance. This is just in 1957. And President Eisenhower then met with Faubus in Newport, Rhode Island. And he's like, bro, I don't know if he said bro, but he's like, you can't do that. The Supreme Court said this, and you can't do that. And he's like, sorry, we got states' rights. We're going to do it. And so instead of complying, he refused. So Eisenhower issued an executive order and then federalized the National Guard out of his control, out of the governor's control, and then sent in 1,000 soldiers from the 101st Airborne Division to escort these students to class. That following year after that, rather than accepting the integration, the governor just closed all 4 of Little Rock's high schools for the entire year. And students had to watch classes on television. Remember when we had to do that for COVID? So that was in 1957. Now, by 1960, 6 years after Brown versus Board of Education kind of ruled that, the New Orleans school districts were still segregated. They didn't do anything. Desperate to appear compliant without actually doing anything, they're like, okay, we'll do it. We'll just create an exam. And any black students who pass the exam, you can go to the white school and it'll be fine. But they were fully confident that nobody was going to pass. Well, it just so happened that 6 children did pass. Oh, crap. What are we going to do now? Well, 2 families of those 6 chose not to send their kids to those white schools. 3 children, Leona, Gail, and Tessie, were sent to McDonough number 19 Elementary, and one 6-year-old little girl named Ruby became the sole black child to enroll at William Franz Elementary School. She was escorted. Oh, there's Ruby. Isn't she a doll? My goodness. She was escorted there by federal marshals. Now, every single teacher in the school refused to teach Ruby, except one. Her name was Barbara Henry, and she was a young white teacher from Boston. And white families were starting to pull their kids from the school en masse. And Ruby spent the entire first day of that class in the principal's office trying to let the chaos kind of settle down. But the rest of the year, she sat alone in a classroom with her one teacher, Barbara, for the rest of that whole year. But every day, she had to pass by crowds that persisted for months and months and months, chanting, insulting, throwing death threats at a 6-year-old girl. One woman threatened to poison her. Every single day, she would show up, get to the front of the line, and threaten to poison Ruby. Another held up a black baby doll in a coffin every day for her to see. So Ruby had to only eat food that she brought from home because that would be the safest. Now, retaliation happened a lot. Very quickly with her family, her father lost his job at the gas station, magically somehow. Her grandparents were sharecroppers in Mississippi, and they were turned off their land. And the grocery store that the family shopped at refused to serve them any longer. But Ruby's mother was convinced that she was right. She was convinced not only for Ruby's education, she says, I want my child to get the best education, but she also said, we need to take this step forward for all African-American children. That's what she said. And it got me thinking, like, that's some hostility, y'all. Like, I don't know if I could do that. When I read stories like Ruby's, I find myself asking, how did they do it? How did they find the courage to walk into hostility and violence day after day after day? And there's this quote from W.E.B. Du Bois, and he says this, there is in this world no such force as the force of a person determined to rise. The human soul cannot be permanently chained. I love that. It kind of gives you a glimpse at this driving vision that Ruby had. See, what Ruby carried into that school, what sustained her through the jeering crowds, the isolation, the threats, her family's suffering, was a vision. Later on, Ruby would actually say that she was not afraid in the same way the adults around her were, and she actually prayed for all the people who were screaming at her. Man, I don't know if I'd have that kind of strength. But she, as walking through the crowds, would pray for the people threatening her life. At 6 years old, this Black community's sustaining vision was not naive optimism. It was a glimpse of dignity that no crowd could unmake with any jeer or threat. It was a conviction that equal worth of human beings was already true, even if it was violently denied. So Ruby had this glimpse of a world in which we don't consume one another with hatred, and a glimpse of what was true, but not yet experienced. That glimpse was the sustaining force for her and her family. Martin Luther King Jr. later stood before a crowd in Memphis and said, I've been on the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I might not get there with you, but I want you to know that we as a people will get to the promised land. And he came down from that mountaintop speech, and the next day he was assassinated. He didn't make it to that promised land. Now, in this passage, Jesus is 3 weeks from walking into Jerusalem to face his jeering crowds, his illegal trial, the physical abuse, the unjust execution. And this text is the mountaintop that provides the sustaining vision to go down and do that. This glimpse that we see here of invisible truth not yet experienced sustains Christ through this descent down into his suffering. It says that 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James, his brother John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And then he was transfigured before them and he just started shining like the sun. Now, mountains in scriptures are places of not just elevation, but revelation. I almost said relevation. My tongue is tripping over itself today. Revelations happen on mountains. You think about it. All the temples are built on top of mountains. Sinai, Carmel, Horeb, all these mountains. And even the last time Matthew's disciples went up a mountain, they received the Sermon on the Mount so that they can bring something back down for the crowds waiting below. See, mountains are places to encounter something that we like to call the holy. Or if you're going to put it in not so fancy religious language, a glimpse of that truth not yet made real and experienced. And so that mountain experience, it says that they went by themselves. And a lot of times in mountains, you see this sacred separation that happens where they go up a mountain alone or in a very small group. And now I want you to notice that this sacred separation is not the same as like an escapism, like going on a vacation to get away from it all, that kind of thing, right? I was in a crushing job once back in the day. It was working me to death. I was burning out. I was down to about 155 pounds at 6'5". You can imagine that, like a walking skeleton. And we got away on a vacation. It was great. And our Isaac was about this tall at the time. And we're sitting on the dock, first day, just kind of watching the sunset over this lake. And Isaac stands up and he walks to the edge of the dock and he shouts, top of his lungs across the water, "We're taking a break from reality." I was like, yes, we are. Yes, we are. Right? There was an escapism in that moment that was needed, right? We need those escape moments to refuel. But these mountaintop moments are not the same as those. Like, we're not climbing up this mountain to meet with God to refuel for another round of the same grind, right? We're climbing to get a glimpse of something true that can then break through into our lives. And we need silence to find the clarity to re-enter the fray. Like, we have this hunger for escapism in our, we got all the streaming services, we do vacations and experiences, anything to just break the routine, right? We all are like looking forward, like, oh yeah, in May, I can't wait until I get a chance to go and do that thing. And that hunger is real and the need is totally legitimate. I'm not talking down about escapism. Like, we need it, but we need separation from the crushing demands that modern life places on us, so we get away from it. We go and escape. Totally needed. But it's not the same as this sacred separation moment. It's not an escapism that these guys are doing, is like come back down and kind of refuel. Escapism returns us to the grind recharged, but mostly unchanged. You're like, all right, I got a little bit more energy. Let's go and do this, right? You sense that sometimes in that dread, that Sunday night, you're like, oh, tomorrow's Monday morning. I got to do the Monday mornings. Everyone get the Monday mornings? Like, that weekend was your escape from the grind. And then you get that Sunday night kind of thing. Or you're at the vacation. You're on the last day. You're like, oh, I got to go home. And then I got to go back to doing the things, right? Like, the crushing demands of modern life are real and we need to escape from that. But this sacred separation is totally different. Sacred separation returns us with something different, an inner resolve to see things made better. Not just recharging and giving us more energy to get back to the grind. It actually changes what we're returning for, not just how much energy we have to return with. Sometimes in those sacred separation moments, you go out on a retreat or a trip or a pilgrimage of some kind, and you get like this inner clarity about you and what you should be about and doing in the world. And then you return with a resolve to move that forward. Not just more energy to keep doing what you always do, but to say, you know what, some things can change. And now I have this glimpse of something different and better, and I can do something with this. Those are those mountain moments. And you can have those mountain moments in the morning time before anything gets rolling. Have some quiet. Have a little meditation session. Light a candle. Some of our Lent practices are going to help you do some of these things coming up in the next week. And escapism is great too, so watch your Netflix. But those mountain moments where you get clarity and say, I got creativity. I got a vision. Things can be different. And now I know what to do. That's kind of what's going on here in this mountaintop moment. Now, notice that there's 3 people on this mountain. Like, Jesus brings 3 people with him, Peter, James, and John. Not 1, not 2, but 3. I think that this is really essential because this is a holy moment. And holy moments, like these transcendent moments, if you see it by one, it just becomes a little private thing. And that's cool. You could, sometimes you need those. Sometimes transcendence witnessed by 2 people turns into a debate, like much of Christianity. right? Like, it seems like everyone's got a different idea about this thing called God. And transcendence, that thing that we're all talking about, that God, that divine spirit, like that witnessed by two people then turns into a debate. I'm right, you're wrong, right? But three is a community. Three refuses that either or binary black and white system and says, now there's a community here. So it's probably no accident that the earliest Christian imagination about God was Trinitarian in being: Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or Creator, Redeemer, and Spirit, if you like. Right? A being whose very nature is communal, is relational, is generative. And this theology claims that God is a community of diversity wrapped up in God's very self. I think that's pretty cool. And so Jesus brings three people up the mountain. And then it says that like this moment happens. He's transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun. His garments become white as light. Now, this is not Christ becoming something new or something happening to Jesus from the outside. Like God is up kind of in heaven and is like, all right, now I'm going to zap you with the holy, and bam, now you're all shining. That's not what's happening here. There's a revelation of what's already true about Jesus. The veil of ordinariness was just pulled back to reveal something that was true. The same body that's going to hang on a Roman cross for treason and blasphemy now shines with divinity on this mountain. The same hands that will be nailed down are illuminated with light. The crucified one is first and foremost the radiant one. And this is a glimpse of what was true, but not yet made real. Mountaintop moments of clarity like this give us resolve to go and work and make the good and true and beautiful experienced realities amongst our communities. This Orthodox bishop, Callistos Ware, he said this: the transfiguration was not just a revelation of Christ's glory, but the revelation of what humanity is called to become, bearers of uncreated light. This moment is not just a religious spectacle for the disciples to watch and cheer on. This is the destiny that they are being invited to participate in. And so are you. When you get a glimpse of Christ on the mountain, it's not just claiming, something that's real about Jesus. It's also what is real about you. That vision propels us down the mountain with passion to change things for the better. This moment of Christ shining reveals your destiny, reveals what Christ has made true about humanity that we now need to experience by cultivating it. So this isn't something the disciples watch. It's a destiny they're being invited to participate in. Now, these glimpses are not given to inflate the ego and say, look how awesome I am. God gave me this awesome vision. It actually is the opposite of that. It grounds the identity down to the ground. We need moments that reveal what is true and good and beautiful to us, not so that we can cling to them, but so that we can carry them back down into our Monday mornings. Otherwise, we're going to spend our lives striving to acquire this identity that is being declared over us already, when we should be waking up to the fact that it's already true of us. That voice says, "This is my son. I am pleased with him." That's not tied to his performance. That's not tied to what he's doing. That's just true about him. And this moment is also the revelation of our destiny and what God already thinks about all of us. You are the beloved of God. That is already true. You don't have to earn it or try to get it or be cool enough to achieve it one day. It's just already there. Then something interesting happens. It's like this heavenly staff meeting. It's like this one couldn't have been an email because it didn't exist then. Moses and Elijah appear and have this little holy staff meeting going on here. Well, like, what's happening? It says here, suddenly it appeared to him, Moses and Elijah, and Peter said to Jesus, hey, that's cool. That's Greek for whatever. He's like, if you want, I'll set up some tents here and we can just kind of camp out here for a while. And then while he's still speaking, that voice booms forward, interrupts Peter and says, this is my beloved son and I'm well pleased with him. Now this Moses and Elijah figure, they're very key in the history of these people. That's the law and the prophets. And they are in conversation with Jesus, but notice that they're not bowing down before him. This is cool because law and prophecy are in dialogue with love. A love that is wrapped in a human life, experiencing a human culture run by human systems that lean towards favoring the powerful and crushing the vulnerable. Now, Moses freed his people from slavery in Egypt. He was the liberator. And Elijah stood up before a corrupt king and refused to bend. His name was Ahab. And Luke actually tells us in his gospel that the conversation they were having was about his coming exodus, which was actually the name of the book that Moses is in. His departure, his liberation project. They're talking about that. That's to come. We like to over-spiritualize this moment, though, right? two very holy people meeting with this very holy man 2,000 years ago on a mountain way back there. That's cool. But framing that in that way keeps this at a safe distance from our heart to impact us and change us. Because we'd sometimes rather spectate than participate, right? We're a little bit nervous to try something. And when it comes to our spirituality, spectating doesn't do anything for us. We have to participate in it. So what does this moment mean for us? This is the question that brings this moment right into our lap. What are we going to do with it? So these two, Moses and Elijah, they're part of Christ's story. His cloud of witnesses, as Hebrew would call them, or the ancestors, as the indigenous tribes would call them, right? Somehow there's a tribe or a cloud of witnesses that accompanies us. Hebrews tells us about that. There's a great cloud of witnesses that have gone before in death. Somehow our cloud of witnesses accompany us on our journey of transfiguration as well. That's something I've found out, right? Who has accompanied you on yours? Who's left an impact on your life so wonderful that even after their passing, they still continue to guide you? A grandparent, parent, friend, a spouse, a sibling, a child. Like their love sticks with you as a compass and a guide. And they give their love to you, and it's something that you have. It's an active force in your present reality, not a mere memory of things that used to be. Sometimes it's a saint, a poet, a musician, an author that you never got to meet in person, but their works have influenced you. Thomas Merton is one for me. And there's somebody whose ideas formed the values that still direct you to this day. Like, I don't really know how it works. I just know that it happens to be true. Our becoming is always a communal act, and not just the people around us, but we have a great cloud of witnesses of people who have gone before us. We can't do our lives alone. Our becoming is wrapped up in all the people around us. And then who are the ones who try to force their way into that position in your life, demanding not transformation, but compliance or complicity with their own power projects? And our better angels, as Lincoln called them, guide us through those pitfalls. Those sacred silent moments on the mountain actually help us hear that inner compass and fill us with resolve to love our neighbor and build a better neighborhood. If you really want to love your neighbor, don't just practice acts of charitable kindness. Those are great. Also build a better neighborhood. That's how we love our neighbor. Now, this whole thing is happening. The cloud of witness, we got Moses, we got Elijah, and Peter decides to interrupt Jesus' meeting with a plan. He's got a plan. I'm going to domesticate this moment. We're going to capitalize on it. Here we go. When we encounter something genuinely holy, our first reaction or instinct is, how do I preserve this? How do I keep it? How do I monetize on it, institutionalize it, manage it, capitalize on it? How do I use this for my benefit? Want to know something I did once? I stole something once. 2015, I was finishing up my doctorate degree. It was such a transforming thing. And I was on site, and we were in this little hotel. It was a little lodge on the Pacific Ocean. And I had my coffee every day in these blue little coffee mugs. And it was just a transforming experience. And the end was coming, and I was going to have no more times with these people or at this lodge. It was my 4th time there. I put the coffee cup in my bag. I took it home. It was a cheap little coffee cup, and I felt so bad when I got home. And you know what? 2 weeks later, it broke. We have these mountaintop moments. It's changed me. I want to own it now. I need to have it. It's mine. This is what Peter's trying to do here. He wants to domesticate the mystery. He wants to package the presence of God into something from which he can dispense access to other people. He wants to make a shrine. But the glory on this mountain is not something to be packaged. It's something to participate in. The voice from the cloud interrupts Peter's plans because it says while he was still speaking. And God doesn't say, hey, listen to the institution, to the doctrines, the traditions, the authorities. God says, listen to him. That's important. The voice names the deepest reality of Jesus. It says, this one's my beloved son. Listen to this one. And that is not something that Jesus earned. It was something that Jesus was. It's not contingent on his performance or productivity. It's just declared and given. And it's true of you. It's true of Christ. And just like Ruby Bridges realized, no earthly power gave it to you. So therefore, no earthly power can strip it from you. And no religious power can bestow it upon us either. It's something that's yours. As Evagrius Ponticus, with the most pontificate name, said once, do not seek to possess God. Let God possess you. Every time you try to define God, it's an attempt to own God. To attempt to commodify this, to build a religious institution that claims authority to then dispense belovedness to other people and withhold it from others is to seek to own God and not be owned by God. And it's our work as the people of God, not to dispense this to other people, but to help them discover it within themselves, to act as guides. And guess what? We can only do that insofar as we have discovered it in ourselves. It says, then the disciples, overwhelmed, fall to the ground in fear, which is the totally appropriate response at this time. Because God cannot be managed, only met. The holy has never been safe. It undoes that protective insulation that we build around ourselves to manage and control our own life. And the holy always dismantles the illusion of control that we have. But what feels like fear is actually the threshold of transformation, because that old fearful way is about to collapse under its own weight. And fear is always the final defense against love. And you can notice it in yourself or others as this like coiled defensive posture, always ready to counter before the previous sentence is even finished. Have you ever felt that coiled spring ready to burst within you, like, oh, I'm ready to fight? That fear right there, that coiled spring, is actually the threshold of experiencing love and transformation. So the falling down is what allows them to rise up. This is really cool. It says that Jesus came and touched them and said to them, get up, do not be afraid. Now, he does not lecture them. He does not explain to them. He touches them. The word becomes flesh again, right on this mountain. Immediate, particular, physical. Love communicates what an argument cannot. And this touch gives them the vision, what the vision alone couldn't give them, the courage to actually move. And the word he speaks is rise or get up. And that's the same word used for resurrection. And this definitely feels like a resurrection. This old fearful self has gone through a kind of death and arrived at a place of hard-won acceptance, not full understanding, but a resolve. And we like to treat these little resurrection moments where we've experienced a great transformation as like, I finally got there. I finally arrived. It's not quite finally arrived. Right? We will always vacillate between fear and love, just like the disciples after this moment. But we need moments that plant a stake in the ground and declare what is true to us so we know how to return back to it, even when we can't fully live into it yet. This guy here, he's a farmer. He's a poet. He's a novelist. His name's Wendell Berry. And he said it best, practice resurrection. It's not something that you do once and then you're done. It's a way of living in which you keep moving forward. And you're not going to get it right all the time. But you'll have those moments when you get a clarity and you're like, I know what I need to do. I know who I am. And then you'll get things that make you doubt it. And guess what? In those moments, you practice resurrection. You didn't fail to achieve it. You just need more practice. It says they lifted up their eyes. They saw no one except Jesus himself alone. And that word Jesus himself alone is great. All the voices, visions, validations, all the things, they collapse into a single point of love. I love that. Moses is gone. Elijah's gone. The clouds lifted. The voice is gone. The dazzling lights faded. There's only one person left, a friend who's going to walk with them to Jerusalem, who will be arrested, who will be tried and executed by this machinery of corrupt religion in the hands of imperial power. And he says, I am your friend and I will walk with you through this hard time. This is enough. After all the overwhelming glory, this ordinary man standing before them is enough. And what actually looks like diminishment, right? He was like shining like the sun and everything was great. And this thing is like, oh, now you're just regular Jesus again. It looks like diminishment, but it's actually a clarification that happens. But they don't have words for the moment yet. He's like, don't tell anyone about this until I've risen from the dead. You cannot try to explain this to people. The most potent truths can't be understood until we have participated in them, right? You have to participate and practice resurrection until you have words to put around it. And sometimes those words are given to you in a book or a person or a message or a song or something. You're like, yes, that. Those are those times when those things that have been in you, you're not sure how to say them. And all of a sudden it's like, there it is. And when we don't try to wrap words around the holy things before we're ready, then that silence around it actually protects the truth from being trivialized or commodified or weaponized. Because some things can't be spoken until they've been lived and suffered and resurrected into. And the vision must survive the difficulty of life before it can be proclaimed as good news. Here's a picture of Ruby Bridges today. The mountain moment doesn't exempt us from ordinary life. It equips us to enter it back in. Ruby Bridges walked back into that school the next day and the day after and the day after that, not because the crowds had thinned and it got easier. They hadn't. Not because the suffering had eased. It didn't. But because she had in some deep way glimpsed something true about herself that the crowds couldn't get at. She had seen the light and carried the light, and she descended every day into that schoolhouse. That is the moment of every faithful life. A glimpse on the mountain, a return to the ordinary, the slow daily work of practicing resurrection. And the cross is next in this story. Transfiguration doesn't happen at the end of Jesus' story. It happens 3 weeks before the cross. Not a reward for getting everything right. It's a sustaining vision for what comes next. And we're about to enter Lent next week. That's the desert wanderings of Christ. The question the Transfiguration leaves us with is not whether the light is real. The question is whether we will trust it on the way back down when things get hard. You don't have to earn the light that you carry. You just need to remember that it's there. And then when the time comes, you descend. The glimpse of invisible glory sustains Christ through the descent into his suffering passion. And it will with you as well.